All aboard! Welcome to the All Aboard podcast. I'm your host, Brandon DeFreitas, commissioner of the Fantasy Chise Dynasty League. And boy, do we have a special guest today. There's been a lot of talk. No one has taken more heat on this podcast than our man, Edwin. Edwin, how are you doing today?
Well, thank you for that intro. I feel like you need a drop with the boo just to like introduce me, just like the
Boo.
clouds throwing tomatoes out. I feel like it was my time to come on board. I reached out earlier this week. I was like, listen, I'm hearing the episodes. I need to get on. I need to, show my face to the people. There's a man behind the all the evil empire chatter going around.
Probably I would say a man who's a lot nicer than the image we've portrayed. I mean, you're one of the nicest owners in the league. I'm more of the pot stirrer when it comes to
Yeah,
the two of
yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, like, that's probably why I'm getting bodied, is because you're leading the charge here. You're
That's
just
why I
like,
wore
hey,
the
come on,
shirt
boy.
too. Get bodied, fantasy
You have a little
football.
bit more, a little bit more coal on the train.
Well,
Awesome.
I like what we've been doing lately. It kind of started organically, but the league, everyone's been giving sort of an introduction to themselves since not everyone knows each other. So definitely I'll kick it over to you. I don't want to speak on your behalf and sell you, but
Cool, cool. Yeah. So Brandon and I, I'm one of the PwC guys as well. We met back in 2014. So began as a professional relationship, obviously blossomed to more than that now. So I that's how we connected initially, and then we just started doing fantasy leagues and hanging out with the guys separately now. Just doing things. We've been to Brandon's home and watch games there and just hanging out with the guys is over time too. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm from the Dominican Republic originally, been in Boston area now for most of my life at this point. Went to school here, BU, working at PwC, and then I transitioned to another company and living out in Dedham area. So for anybody that's local, it's fairly close to Boston as well. And yeah, there's just a couple high level fun facts there.
I've spent a lot of my actually probably back when I was a single man, a lot of my time at Legacy Place in Dedham. A couple of us
Yeah,
guys would always go
I'm
Yard
five
House.
minutes away from there now.
Yeah, Yard House and a movie or go to King's or something. So it's a great area. I definitely miss going there.
I've probably abused Yard House and Kings at this point because it's so close. And I
Yeah.
mean, I love beer. That's another fun fact. So that's that one you probably could have guessed, but it's too convenient and there's too many options there. It's like if you like beer, you have the whole menu there, and usually a game on, good spot. I remember I actually saw you one time. I
Oh,
was
really?
out and I was like, wait, I know that kid.
Hey, it's that cocky SOB who just started at the firm.
Yeah,
What's
yeah,
he
that's
doing
yep,
here?
exactly. You have this like calm demeanor now, but the professional
Hey,
side of
you
things, I
know,
had to be your feedback provider a couple times.
we all mature over time, Edwin, and that's what's most important here.
In some ways,
Yeah.
yes.
But I know speaking of, I think we call ourselves, we have a group of six guys. We used to work together a lot. And we have a group chat called the Vampires. It started from 2 years ago. We did a vampire league or something, 6-person vampire league. I got destroyed. It's like, and for anyone who's never done a vampire league, it's where you have like one team doesn't draft and
Right.
they get to pick their team from the leftovers after the draft, and they're allowed to get first dibs at waivers every week. So like, and I believe if you lose to the vampire, they get to steal a player off your team too. So by the
Yes.
end of the season, I was all right, but I just got in such a hole that I couldn't come back from it.
Well, you wanted it. I kept saying, I'm like, guys, we need to make the roster size a little bit more fair. Like he's just gonna get bodied. And you're like, no, no, I'll be the vampire. I
I thought I would destroy you guys with the waiver
yeah.
wire.
And I was like, dude, like this is only 16 league. Like our lineups were stacked.
It
And
was it
you were
was
just like,
I was getting slaughtered every week.
I was advocating in your favor, and you were just like, no, no, I got this. And I was like, all right.
Well, we also had this crazy rule where if a player was on bye and I beat you, I couldn't steal the player on
Yeah.
bye. which hurt because I think most of my wins happened and like the elite running backs were on bye. And I'm like, I don't need another receiver. Like I have no running backs. I think
Yeah, that sounds.
I started like complaining about the rules, and then the Vampire League fell apart, which is somewhat in turn been replaced by the Dynasty League, which I think is going pretty well so far.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is my first Dynasty League ever.
Same.
So this is definitely getting, used to it as well. Like, and I mean, even for fantasy football, like I adopted that after baseball. Like I did, fantasy baseball. I'm still doing fantasy baseball, but football, kind of getting used to that. And as you know, my brand on fantasy football for a long time has been the Madden 2011 team, because I just had a tendency to always draft aging players and redraft. Never really went for rookies, never really went for anyone that was just like speculative. I just wanted proven players, which is not the strategy you want for dynasty. Obviously, you need to go with some
Yep.
youth and mix it up, or just have guys that have upside or opportunity. So it's been a lot of fun just kind of like getting to know the dynamic here. But obviously, like a lot more hesitant making trades for myself, at least, because
Mhm.
I want to see it kind of play out a little bit, just to see like, all right, did that strategy work out a little bit, or do I need to tweak a little bit more? Just because it's so permanent, or at least it feels that way.
Yeah. Well, it definitely is so permanent. Like you said, we're all new to it. So it's like, I don't think any of us knows how to properly value draft picks. And like you have me over here being like, oh, they're worth nothing unless it's a top half of the first round. Then you got John Canellis on the other side, and he's holding on to his draft picks, hanging on to them because he's a big NFL draft guy. So, and it's impossible to say who's right. We don't know.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Well,
we're
it's
just
hard
trying to
for
figure it
me.
out.
Yeah, I'm not a college football guy. I'm definitely, NFL, and I could even for all professional sports, like I don't really follow college that much. So, I may need to start now, just even just kind of tune in a little bit. But, I feel like sometimes that can also hurt you, because then you buy into
Yeah.
the hype, and ESPN will like replay the same storyline about some guy going off, and you're just like super charged up, like let's go, kind of like different sport, but like Zion Williamson for NBA for a while there, that's all you kept hearing. It's like tanking for Zion, and like yeah, like you get super charged up about these guys, but like really you don't know what you're getting.
Right. Oh, for sure. And like you said, it's no one's a proven commodity. And for like the guy who you liked Madden 11 players, because these were proven
Yes,
commodities, have been in the league. And um,
exactly.
so I think that's what's going to be interesting. And it's probably going to take a couple of years for us to be like, okay, this is essentially the value of what a second round pick turns into. Right
Right.
now, we're just guessing, unless you're Travers and you have some experience.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I would say he's really experienced, because he just does all kinds of things. I feel like he does like dailies, he does weeklies, he does like prop bets, he's like
Just
multifaceted.
just an absolute degenerate.
Yeah. I give the professional, branding on that one, but which I guess like that ties into my strategy. Not sure if we want to touch on that piece next on
Let,
how I went about this.
let's hop in because I was going to say part of the reason I brought up our group is with even longer than the Vampire League. It's been a fantasy baseball league almost since I started at PWC. And
Yeah.
let me tell you, it's like hungry hippos with pitching in that league. Like if you don't get pitching early or you miss the pitching run, just kiss your season goodbye.
Unless
So
you're Will Tam.
yeah, unless you're Will Tam and like everyone you pick off the waiver wire becomes an ace. But
Yeah, basically.
otherwise for us common folk, it's tough. And I'm gonna wrap this into your strategy a little bit. It felt to me like you treated the running back market like we treat the pitching market in that league.
So my strategy going in was not to just go for RBs. I did want to value RBs, because I always heard, or at least what I was trying to research, that Dynasty, it's impossible to get running backs.
Yeah.
Like, it's really hard to get two good running backs. And our rosters are huge. Like our starting lineups are huge. So I was like, okay, well, they're probably going to go for some running backs too in those first couple rounds. And like, I have the draft board up. So if you see me looking to the side, it's because I'm
Oh,
referencing that. And
I
like, I
like it.
revisited it today, and I was like, I started with Cook. So just to like recap that was my
Yeah.
first pick, Dalvin Cook. And I was like, all right, got running back. I can mix it up after that. The first three QBs off the board were Mahomes, Murray, Allen, which I sort of expected. But as soon as I took Cook, it was 3 QBs again in a row, running back and another QB, and then another QB. So I was
Yeah.
like, whoa, okay, like QBs are flying off the board. But a lot of the guys that I was sort of banking on kind of coming back to me were gone. So
Yeah.
then I faced the thought of like, do I reach for a QB that I don't love as much, or do I just try to get the next great value pick, which was Tyreek Hill? So despite the image of the running back hoarding, I actually went wide receiver after that.
Mhm.
And I mentioned to you separately in the chat at the fourth round, Zeke Elliott was there. So it was a fourth rounder.
A
At
lot
that
of
point, I'm like,
value.
do I reach for a QB again that I don't really love? Or do I just start off Cook, Zeke, and then 2 stud wide receivers?
Yeah.
After that, I expected the running back run to just, fully flow, and it kind of didn't. So I just kept grabbing them because they were there.
Yeah.
And Javonte Williams, I will touch on him the most because he was my 5th round pick.
Yeah.
And despite all the talk about the running back hoarding, he's the only one that people have been aiming for. Trade offers have been extended for
Oh.
him, but he is the only one. And I am been holding on tightly because he is my one really young guy that's showing so much promise.
Yeah.
And for a Madden 2011 guy, I need that because I need to replace, Cook Zeke. There was a lot of question marks with Zeke and his role. And then that's why I made sure to grab Pollard. And I wanted to get Madison, but then I, kind of pivoted late in the rounds. But Cook has had injuries this year, so he's missed a couple of weeks. Zeke had injury role question marks. Montgomery's been on IR. All of a sudden, all that depth just kind of started to wither away a little bit.
Yeah.
Harris, actually, I was big on, and he just hasn't paid off yet. So all of a sudden, I was like, oh, like a lot of my guys that was banking on that core that I had just hasn't been as solid. So I'm like, I need these guys. And thank God for CMC getting hurt because Hubbard now has a role.
Yeah.
So I can see what I got there. And maybe if he
Chuba.
has some juice, he could be a guy that's like, I could either trade to the CMC owner,
Yep.
Mr. McAllister.
Yeah. All roads lead back to Mr. McAllister in my trades.
So it's sort of like going to the strategy. I was like, you know what? At this point, the QBs I'm going to get aren't going to be studs. I know that. They're not going to be the guys that are, being chased after. But when I started drafting QBs, it was a little bit later on, like Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, Wentz, guys that you're not going to be excited for, but I think they could put up 20 points. I think they can give you that. And like, if you're getting, an average week from Mahomes, I say average, it's like 28 points still, then maybe I can make up those 8 points somewhere else with that, the course of my other starters.
Yeah. And
Of
I
course.
think it's worked out for you pretty good. Released the new power rankings today. At least in my eyes, I had you at number 2, slowly climbing your way up the mountain.
Just quietly.
But I do like the zigging while the league zagged, and because one of my regrets in the draft was I went in, and it's funny, I accused you of the pitching. I sort of do think you switched that around on me because the league really tried to hoard quarterbacks real fast because of the super flex and the 4 quarterback limit. And I really went into the draft. I'm like, I want 4 starters, and not everyone can get 4 starters. So, and what cost me is I think I overdrafted that. I'm fine with the first round. I went Dak. I'm happy with that. He looks like a stud.
Yeah.
Zach Wilson in the 7th looks like a little bit of a mistake. I know he's just a rookie and he still has value because he could develop, but like a little bit early to go for a player who's kind of played like a puddle so far in his rookie season. And then,
sorry.
And then, Deshaun Watson in the 8th too. Like that's a pick that he's a guy who would go first round in our format, but
Right.
not a pick for this season. And I think that's sort of why I'm at the bottom of the table at the moment.
Oh, I will speak on that. Watson is, if he clears all the issues, yes, off the field, and we won't necessarily know about that or when or what's going to happen there, but that could be a game changer for you because clearly he's a proven talent, which Madden 2011 likes.
Yep.
And he's a two-way player. He can run and throw, and like you just give him a couple tools and he can work with that. So but that's exactly how I felt during the draft. I was like, you know what? They're all hoarding the QBs, all the young guys, even the guys that I was sort of like, okay, I'll get the QB this round or the next round, this guy I can target. And they were just flying. Like So I figure, like, for example, I'm looking back now, two of the QBs that went in the fifth, Aaron Rodgers went, who obviously I love, he's great, but he's
Yep.
aging as well. And still, fifth round, he's gone.
Yep.
Hurts, gone. So it's just like, well, I'm not gonna get these studs. I need to just have a strength somewhere else.
Yep. Jalen Hurts, who, by the way, I'm not sure he's going to make it through the season as a starter because his real NFL performance is not in line with his fantasy performance at the moment. He's really not showing out on the field.
Yeah, I think I stuck to the Madden 2011 strategy for my QBs, which like I've mentioned to you offline, where Matt Ryan is. I know he's declining. I'm fully
Yep.
aware of that, but people drafted Calvin Ridley as one of their top picks. And if you believe in Ridley, well, I mean, at least he's attached to a stud wide receiver,
Mhm.
similar to Kirk Cousins. If you believe in Justin Jefferson, at least in the short term, they're attached to these guys, and
Yep.
hopefully I can ride that wave at least in this year, maybe next year. But obviously I'm aware there's a tier difference there, but I figure if you have some talent around you, look at Patterson this year, Cordell Patterson, who's
Yep.
actually like been sneaky providing value because he doesn't have the same arm anymore. He has to dump it off.
Mhm.
Well, whatever works,
Whatever.
I gotta ride that wave.
For sure. And I think like, I mean, I can see your team and my brother's team too needs quarterbacks. So you guys will be looking in the rookie draft, maybe get a young guy. And if I do get Watson, and again, like I know serious allegations against him, we're going to cover only the football side. I would be excited from a football only perspective for him to get traded and potentially help my team out. So I mean, if that happened, maybe I'm looking to move Zach Wilson at some point, and like I know I just said he's a puddle. I didn't exactly sell him very well, but like still a rookie could end up developing second overall pick. So I
Sure.
think there's a lot of interesting stuff in the trade market. And I am intrigued. It is like you think everyone's like, how come Edwin's not dealing backs? Because I kind of support you there. Like, I'm not trading Javonte Williams right now because he's in a 50-50 workload with Melvin Gordon. Gordon's contract is up after the year. So this is the lowest, like, and he's showing the talent too. So this is the lowest his value is going to be. And I think people know that and they're trying to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
And I think you're like, this is one of my young guys who I think is going to really get an uptick in value over the offseason. So, like, yeah, not really for sale at the moment. So I don't really blame you there.
Yeah, and it's not even just trying to be like super stingy and I'm like, oh, whatever. It's more so because I'm also looking at like if Cook continues to like just miss time, all of a sudden, like that's one guy that I was really banking on to give me points that I need to fill in with someone else. And this kid could be it, next year, and that then great. I don't have to worry about, just trying to scour for a running back. But that's why I also highlighted that because I'm like, yeah, I have this horde of, but that's the only guy that seems to be getting attention. No one's making offers for Zeke, or they haven't yet, for example, or Montgomery, on the IR, or Harris, or those guys. So,
Yeah.
yeah, right now I'm just looking to see what happens. Hopefully, it works out, but I'm not shut down for trades. It's more so kind of still feeling out how this strategy is working out.
Yeah. That makes sense. And I think too, like, so let's get the sense here because you're sitting second in the power ranking, second in the power rankings and second in the standings. So it looks like our commissioner has been a little lame with the power rankings, but and I'm at the bottom of the table. So we're in completely different situations. Like as you approach week 11, so it's week 7 we're entering right now. Week 11 is the trade deadline. Let's say you're still sitting in the top 4 spot, like you're probably more willing at that point to buy in and say,
Right.
I'm a buyer. I'm going to commit a little bit of resource to the season to try to get the championship.
Right. And another reason why I'm still sort of feeling things out is I don't know if I've been lucky to some extent because I was looking at the standings and the points against, points for. I actually have the second lowest points against,
Yeah.
uh, which, who knows if that's going to come into play with, some of these other matchups going down the stretch. I believe Yeah, it's 833 points against. The lowest is 832 in the league.
Yeah.
So I have beaten some of the top teams, like face the Fatty Cats, and I narrow the win against TB12. But so those are definitely some of the better teams in the league. But who's to say? I have been getting some really close, lucky wins, and is that luck going to run out? And then all of a sudden, I do need to make some moves
Hmm.
as I'm getting closer to make sure I make it.
Yep. And full transparency, that's why I moved you up the power rankings. You can't beat the Fatty Cats and then beat Mark and not move up the power rankings. I just like that would be disingenuous to what's going on in the league, whether luck is involved or not. And it's funny as you're talking about the points against. I looked up the team that was 832, the second lowest points against.
Yep.
It's John Baricelli, and John B is 8th place. So he's hasn't had many points against, and it still has not done anything. So a little bit of a rough season for John so far.
Interesting, because then it seems like maybe my team has responded, playing up to his competition.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure the week my highest scoring week was against the Fatty Cats. So maybe my team was just like, we need to rise up, make sure we represent.
Yeah. Taking Ben down in that game. And yeah, there's been a lot of power matchups lately. And I think that's my favorite part about Dynasty is like sometimes in a redraft, there's so much going on. And you're like, who's good, who's not? And you don't
Yeah,
really know until later the season. Like
right.
Dynasty, like I feel like it's easier to know. You're like, I kind of know who the top 6 teams are. And like when I see those matchups, it's really interesting to keep an eye on them.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I mean, even the matchup between you and Tam, that's huge, because like
The toilet
um
bowl.
you're looking into the playoff implications. I'm like, who, right now we have this tier of some of the guys are the teams that are kind of more so seem like they're locked in. But then there's that middle tier of like, are any of those, 4, 5, 6 place teams going to fall out? And some of these teams can come in.
Yeah.
And I was taking a look at, I believe the 2025 league champs themselves actually have the
Jimmy.
most points against
Yeah.
right now. And I think that's my pick to sneak into the playoffs.
Ooh,
Could go on a little streak here.
that's
Most points
spicy.
against. I mean, that's tough. That's tough to have that as 991, which, as I mentioned, I'm at 833. I'm 5-1. He's 2-4. What if
Yeah.
some of those breaks went his way? You never know. He's only 2-4. That's it. It's not insurmountable, by any means. And I think there's definitely some talent there on his team, to kind of help that. Losing CMC,
Yeah. Christian
very
McCaffrey
tough.
coming back.
Right. Exactly. Like that's so he's out at least for 2 more weeks, and then we'll see if he's back after that. But to manage 2-4, losing CMC, first overall pick, I think that's a great place to be at 2-4. And if you can edge out some wins, probably some savvy managing there. I'll give a shout out to him picking up like Cordell Patterson for $2 back in like September
Oh
14.
man, that's paid off.
It has Kadarius Toney in there. And at the time, I'm pretty sure he got drafted fairly late. I'm looking back at the board. It's a 15-round pick.
Oh boy,
Um,
we messed up.
so there's definitely some core talent there. And so I feel like that's a threat that, the league should be aware of. He could sneak in there.
It's funny, he changed his name to 2025 league champs after all his injuries. He's lost Mostert, Gus Edwards as well. And so when he lost Chark and Christian McCaffrey, he's like, I'm a seller. But then he's kind of hanging around. He's hanging around. He's got some talent. He's only a game back of his buddy Ben over there. So we all treat Ben as a contender. I think it's rightfully so. And then we all sort of treat Jimmy as bottom of the barrel in the final 4 teams, but maybe you're onto something. Maybe he could make a run.
Yeah, and it's almost like he did the reverse jinx on the league. He was just like, "Oh, that's it,
Yeah.
2025 champs. I'm cursed," and all of a sudden now the karma's switching.
I will say sometimes in trade negotiations with them, I'm like, Looks like he's trying to buy. It doesn't look like he's selling anymore. So like, I'm not sure I buy the reverse jinx anymore.
He's just lulling you to sleep while he
Yeah,
just puts an offer out there.
because I have that like stink where like my team's very thirsty for trades. Like everyone knows what direction I'm going in. Like I'm not hiding everything. I'm like, oh, be me, trade with me. Let me sell my pieces.
Well, it's
Marvin Jones for like a bag of balls in the corner. Like
that go balls in the corner. Well, I would say, like, as far as traders, there's definitely some dealers in the league, which I know we're sort of jumping around from different teams right now, but I know, like, yourself, you're not shy to pull the trigger on deals. Travers will definitely make some moves. John also likes to trade. I would say the more trade allergic owners are probably myself, probably Mark. But Mark will make deals. It's just I feel like you gotta get like the right value to get them interested.
Mark, Mark and I make a lot of deals in fantasy baseball, and usually a few in football as well. But I will say, Mark's a shark. He waits for you. I don't want to ruin any trade relationships here, and I trust Mark. He won't. But like, Mark waits for you to like text him one night. You're a little drunk. You're vulnerable, and then he's got like a spreadsheet with like average points, like values completely calculated, and he's like, oh, you're willing to make a mistake, we can get a trade done. That's
Yeah, why not? Have another round, buddy, while you think about it.
Yeah. That's kind of Mark. I don't know if I would say stingy. I would say calculated is how I would define his trading.
Calculated is definitely, yeah. Well, I went trade allergic because that's more me, but I was trying to give this end of the spectrum as far as like who's more trigger happy, in comparison to yourself, because I know you're like the Ernest Johnson move there. You're just wheeling and dealing, trying to make it happen. That was a savvy move. You're not shy to take on and make it happen.
Yeah, that was interesting last week. I remember I was pretty open about it too. I posted on the message board. I was like, I'm looking to make a move. I'm looking to clear roster space. Anyone want Hamler for a draft pick? John B took it, and like he's happy to have Hamler, so it was a win-win because I cleared the space. I felt from my research that Dearness Johnson was going to be the backup, and was going to get the work as like the number 2 to Kareem Hunt. I had no idea Kareem Hunt was going to get hurt. So then all of a sudden I'm sitting here with what would have been a hot commodity, and then he goes out last night and I'm like, this isn't just a guy getting an opportunity. Apparently this guy's legitimately good, which I was not aware of. I'll be completely honest. I had no idea he was that good. So,
oh yeah, if you had no idea, I definitely had no idea. I was just like, all right, yeah, this guy.
So, I mean, looking like a good move right now because it's almost like a trade. This is why, like, sometimes, like, instead of outright releasing a guy, maybe see if someone in the league has interest, because it's like Dearness Johnson in the 3rd round pick for KJ Hamler. Like, that looks like, even better,
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And I mean, I actually don't know his age, but I imagine, if it's and for Dynasty, that's like one of the first things that pops into my head is like, are they young enough that maybe they can hang around and I can use them for a couple of years?
Still like an asset. He's 25. He's been in the league a couple of years. Do you remember the AAF? He was an AAF running back.
Got it. That's where he made his bones.
Exactly. So then he's gotten his opportunity now, and obviously looked fantastic last night.
But he looked good.
I think for me with running backs, I look a lot at tread on the tires. Like the age number, I'm less concerned with as much as like I know I picked on him last podcast too, but Derrick Henry, like how many carries can he take? Like I know he's different, like he's just a beast, but like a non-Derrick Henry running back gets that workload, and you're like, there's a lot of tread on those tires. Like it's not gonna last that long, versus like Saquon Barkley. I feel like it's his 4th season. He's been around. Usually guys are starting to wear out, but like he's always, maybe this is negative, but he's always been hurt. He's never really had those huge workloads yet. So as his dynasty owner, I feel like there's more left on Saquon Barkley than like maybe I know you're the Zeke owner, but a Zeke Elliott who was only a year he was drafted the year before Saquon. So like Saquon to me feels like he has a little bit left in the tank than a Zeke because of the workloads, if that makes sense.
Definitely. Which I mean, that's part of the fun of this, right? Like with Dynasty, you're kind of like, well, the win now, guys, and then you're taking a look at these running backs in particular. Their jobs could be they rotate so quickly, and you never know like who's going to give you value there. And sometimes you do all this research and you think you got the guy, and it turns out the team just. I feel like the San Francisco 49ers do the best job at just smoke and mirrors. You have no idea who's going to be the guy, and all of a sudden they pull up like the third guy on the depth chart, and like they start him, and he does great because they just have a good system.
The
they
missile.
know how to use them.
That's such a good point. I was thinking about this the other day. I actually put a note in my phone. We're big fans of the fantasy footballers. Probably one of the reasons we're doing these podcasts. They're awesome. They're the best. And like Jason Moore always says, in the middle of the season, he takes notes for next year, things to remember in the off season. And I made a dynasty note the other day. I'm like, thing to remember. I remember at the draft time, I didn't draft many running backs because I was like, oh, that's the number 2 guy. That's the number 3 guy. Like it was a year where there weren't many high draft picked running backs. And then some of them were hurt. So I was like, I'm not that interested in the young running backs. But as I've learned, and there's been a lot of injuries this year, I'm like, the guys who are on the team, like maybe they're not household names, but I'm going to own them going into next year because like, I don't know who's good and who's not. And like the 2 guys on my team, like Khalil Herbert and Dearness Johnson, I just picked them up the scrap heap mid-season. Like they're just kind of like a random name at that point, then they get an opportunity and you're like, holy cow, maybe I have an asset. And that's something I noted. Like, don't always be like, I haven't seen it from this guy. Like, I don't know, like hold more of these backup running backs and see what happens in dynasty is kind of what I noted.
Basically what I did during the draft.
Here he goes.
once we got late, I was just like, well, there's so many guys I have no idea about. Like, I was just like, let me just dart throws to start
Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah, and exactly. Like Chuba Hubbard was one of them. I'm pretty sure I got him. I'm looking up to see when I actually scooped him up, but he was a 13th rounder. And Pollard was 14th round, which they were a little bit more known, but like I scooped up like Marlon Mack in the 21st round, who it's not that I'm super crazy about him or anything, and he has Jonathan Taylor right in front of him, but it was like there's the trade talk now.
Yeah, exactly.
You end up in a position where he might actually be useful. Who knows, but that's exactly to your point of like these guys on the team could have value overnight, just like an ACL tear away.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But that's it's interesting that you touched on Derrick Henry because I tried to get prepared for this podcast, making notes on different teams, and that's one of the ones I wanted to touch on was like the TB12 method is definitely a threat of a team, but Derrick Henry could be a problem if as soon as the threads all of a sudden just get too thin on those tires and you got to change them out. That's tough.
It is tough. And I mean, you look at Mark too, he's got him and Brady, like unless he's got the 2 guys who you're like, maybe they defy convention, but for how much longer,
Right.
And well, I actually thought about bumping Mark down the power rankings because I was like, we saw it again last week. He put up 160 with Derrick Henry, but like he put up 277 the week before. And I think having all those Tampa players, like he's just so reliant on them plus Derrick Henry. And Henry was the only reason he got back in the game. He was at like 120 points going into that Monday night against you.
Oh, yeah, you're telling me I faced him. I was up by like 40, and I was like, well, I think I forget who I had, but I had somebody there that was still like, could give me like 5 points or something, like some buffer. So I was like, okay, I think I'm good. Yes, Derrick Henry. Of course, I only win by like 6 points at the end of the matchup.
And you're getting nervous at that point.
Oh yeah, I mean he went like Super Saiyan 4. He's insane. Like it's just that's one of those guys that of course you love to have, and having that Tom Brady stack with all the Buccaneers is great. It's like a DFS play where you want like the QB and the wide receiver so you can maximize it. Yeah. And when he hits big. Yeah. But if he misses, like this week, he has AB and Gronk both out. Ooh. So that's tough. That's tough to just sort of pivot to if those are guys you're banking on and they're both on the same team. and it could potentially hurt the one your starting QB. And but that's one of the that's a risk spot also with Henry. And then I also noticed that he dropped that big hint on the chat about the taxi squad promotion,
Yeah.
which I noticed right now his second flex spot, the super flex spot, is open. So is this Mac Jones time?
Oh, I believe he was texting me hinting at something like that. So I think you might be right. That's a good
He's
snipe
just
out of you.
he's waiting for the drama, just hype it up.
It's funny we crap on him for having an old team, but like with how valuable quarterbacks are, he's got Herbert and he has Mac Jones. So like he might be pretty set at quarterback at least
Yeah.
going forward.
Oh, definitely. And I mean, if you have Tom doing his thing, like there's no need to bench him until he shows a reason like to do it. Like he's still
Yeah.
performing, he's still the man. And it hurts to see him in a different uniform beating, I guess, but it's all good.
It does hurt.
I wish him well. I wish him well.
I wish him neutral is what I'll say.
Well,
Officially.
yeah, as you can see, I'm Boston through and through tonight. It's
Yeah.
Red Sox
Let's
playoff.
go. Let's go Sox.
Had to represent Red Sox. I know we're talking football, but we got to get this win. This is going game 7. I'm
Yeah.
calling it now.
Well, I do like that Evaldi was very confident when they were interviewing him. He's like,
Yep.
I think he said yesterday, he's like, we want to start the game right now. And that's
Yeah.
the attitude I want. Like,
Yes.
but yeah, I can't talk on the podcast and officially put it on the internet how much I can't stand the Houston Astros, but just suffice, I just can't stand watching that team. I really can't.
I was there live in Fenway, and I got a good look at their dugout because I was closer to their side. And when you're there, it's so much more palpable. Like you just feel that, like, oh. And of course, they crushed us too. So that was a rough game to just be there. We had like 3 hits the whole game or something. It was just, that was a rough one for us. Just seeing them there, showboating, cocky,
that's exactly the vibe you get from them. I will say there was a nice play the ball girl made. She had a nice pick. I'm not sure if you saw that. Like it was like she made a nice play with the glove, and Correa like did a little clap, and they showed it on the
That's cool.
Like he gained some respect back from me because like he's always showboating, and I'm like, oh.
Well, he gave some respect for me when he did respond about the Erod thing, because Erod did the celebration back to him, and he was like, that's fine. I don't care about that. Like, we need more of that in the sport. Like, I take no offense, kind of thing. And I was like, you know what? All right, that's true. We need more of that. People are too sensitive. Like you don't need to throw a fastball to respond back, like and beam some guy in the head.
That's just
let them showboat. Let them pimp the strikeouts. Let them pimp the home runs. Let them like just bring the energy. Like the fans are already kind of sitting there like waiting for something to happen. So may as well let them celebrate when it does.
End of the day, I'm just mad because every time we get in the playoffs, like Altuve, Correa, and Bregman just destroy us. And I don't know what it is. They're always like, I get so nervous when one of those 3 is at the plate. I'm like, they're gonna launch it right now, especially in Houston. Like it feels like we just give up runs and boatloads down there. So hopefully it doesn't happen. We got to get to game 7, then anything can happen.
Exactly.
So I'm pretty fired up for the game. But before we wrap up the podcast, I want to hit some of these other items. You're taking notes on teams. I know we haven't hit on them all. So let's see what else you got, especially for any teams we haven't discussed so far.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't sure exactly what format we were going to go to, if we are going to do things like team by team. So I try to take notes on like guys I really like or value picks, guys that might be making some moves later on. I think I'm just taking a look over here real quick as far as who's your threat right now to win it all this season, if you have to make a pick now.
I really liked Mark for a while there, and the person I'm about to name is not going to be happy. So I think you already know who it is.
I mean, I actually don't know, but I'm going to find out live, but I can guess at who it is just based on that.
I think it's John. I think John has a really strong team. And you look at like points for, Mark's at, 1,112. John's the only other person in the thousands, but then John has a bunch of points against. He's 4-2. I think he's stronger than 4-2. And I just think that Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson combination is really, really good. So I don't
Sure.
know. I'm putting John out there. I'm sorry, buddy. I know you know John does not like being considered the favorite. So
He
just my
does not.
personal opinion. And
That's like reverse jinx for him if you actually give him props.
yeah, I'll knock on wood, John. I'm knocking on wood. But John and I also have a potential deal in the works, potential blockbuster. I can't,
Ooh.
it's private information at the moment, as you know, this is going on to the league. I don't want anyone intercepting, but
Fair enough.
involving
Fair enough.
some big names, and
Wow.
uh so
See, you and John, I named it earlier. Trades are amok.
I'll tell you, like, because like we know from the baseball league generally how each owner works, and like so anyone who hasn't played with us before, like John's a trader, and
Yep.
I'll tell you
Yes, he
right
is.
now, John's itching to make a move. He's being pragmatic for the better, which is like I think benefiting this team. But I know John, and I know John's itching to hit the trigger too. So he's gonna make moves at some point.
I can see that. I actually was gonna say, I think Travers
Yep.
could be the one to win it all. I think Travers, notoriously in our redraft leagues or baseball leagues, he sometimes checks out, doesn't his lineups, but it seems like he's all in Dynasty. I think this is like the right format for him, and I think he has a really sneaky, great wide receiver core overall as a team.
Mhm.
Obviously a QB, like that's the obvious strength that he has to kick it off there. But I feel like he's also an active manager trading wise, and I think he will make moves to continue building on that core as he needs to. He definitely is. I'm more of a wait and see, kind of test it out and then make a move. I think he's not wait and see. I think he'll pull the trigger if he needs to, and I could see him being the one that takes it. He's top in the league as well right now as far as points for as well. So I see him being a threat.
It's the Portuguese guys, me and Travers, a little loosey goosey with the trades over here.
Loosey goosey indeed. There you
Yeah,
go.
no
Um,
pragmatic situation going on for us.
yeah, I could definitely touch on more things, but I know we're coming up on towards the end. One item I was going to mention on a previous podcast episode, you guys mentioned that I dropped JD McKissick, but that was not me. For one of
Yeah,
the
it was
few RBs
Ben.
that didn't draft.
Yeah. I I actually didn't know we had mentioned you. We might have done that by accident. Yeah, it was Ben. Ben released them,
It
and
drafted
then
23rd round.
a little
So
bit
I was
of
gonna
a
mention that was a huge value pick.
yeah. I felt bad. I felt bad when I did it, but I brought it up on a podcast before the waiver show, just to create a little buzz. May not have been the most fair thing to do, but there was some heavy bidding that went on with McKissick.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Just give me a kiss.
I want to say one thing too. Again, like giving some background on some of the people in the league and how they operate. I know Will Tam's 0-6. Will Tam's dangerous. He
Will
is
Tim is dangerous.
dangerous in every fantasy league. He won 3 straight baseball titles, and this is a very like competitive baseball league. He knows what he's doing, and he even told me he's like, I've already learned like if I did another dynasty league, I'd do way better in the startup draft. So like, I make no mistake about it. I think maybe he's biding his time, and like I got to give Tam a lot of credit. He's sort of like where I was, where he wanted to win that game. Like we're not trying to get last place. No one wants last place,
Right.
like lottery or not. And it's a good thing it's a lottery, but still, like nobody wants last place ever. So like I'm not writing Tam off. Maybe it's going to be tough for him this season, but I'll tell you what, like he knows, he drafted his team for the future, and I see him as a player as the trade deadline comes up because Tam is not going to accept being bottom of the table very long. He's going to do what he can to climb.
I agree 100%. Tam is always
He's
a threat,
he's
always
a
dangerous.
he's a
He's a
snake at the
savvy
bottom of the
manager.
league right now. He's ready to pounce.
He knows how to squeeze value out of players. Like he is one of those guys that you just know he's waiting for that moment to strike. It hasn't gone off to the right start, but it's one of those things that when you're thinking, in the long run, I can see him adjusting and adapting, and he'll know how to, get his boys in order. I'm looking now is obviously like there's nothing you could do about like Allen Robinson busting, right? Like
Yeah.
he's been talented his entire career, great man, 2011 guy, so he has my seal of approval, except for this season. It's just that's one of those things that's tough to overcome. But um, even like having like Devontae Booker, great value pick there, seems useful right now. Maybe you can get the value for that guy right now and just
I'm the
try those
Saquon owner.
points. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like maybe you can find it enticing if your team gets hot and
Yep.
you still don't have Saquon, get something out of that.
Yeah, and I know it's funny. I actually like just told him I was like, I do want Booker, but I'm 1-5 teams, so we'll be talking after Saquon's healthy. I'll be
There you
waiting.
go.
I was like, I don't, I don't need to pay a premium to get wins that aren't really going to help me this season.
Right. Exactly. That's the other interesting thing about trades is like, for redraft, you really value like bye weeks and a lot of that because it's very short term. But for
Yeah.
this, is just you just got to think of the grand scheming. Like maybe that's where I overthink it too. But
Mhm.
it is a factor because you just want those backups are valuable. If your top guy gets hurt, like I've been the victim of it, losing Cook and Montgomery and not having the backup. That's just like an easy replacement right there. So I wish I
Yeah.
had that.
I wish I knew that too, because I felt the same like when Saquon and Chubb went down. And I was like, I did not I should have prioritized handcuffs more than I did, because I sort of forgot that redraft, you're like, I'll just shell out a bunch of fab, I'll get the guy later. But in a dynasty, people have roster spots and they're like, oh, I'm already holding your handcuff. I drafted your handcuff.
Yeah.
So you
Oh
really have
yeah.
to like make sure you have one.
You're bidding for the backup to the handcuff. Like it's the
Right.
third string guy, sometimes the fourth, and you're just kind of like putting them there and just see what happens. So like
Yeah.
our waivers are way more active than I even imagined because every time I look at the free agents, I'm like, who the
Yeah,
are
there's nothing. It's garbage.
but somehow people there's always at least like 4 to 5 moves that get made. And that's how like active this league is. Everybody just wants to do something and they put it out there. I love that we can trade fab too.
Yep.
Even if it's not as useful because there's not that many hot guys out there every week, but it's still an advantage you can get, and throw it out there is entice the deals.
Well, like you said, like you look at every time I've looked at the free agent market, I'm like, holy cow. But then you you think of some of the guys you brought it up. Cordero Patterson was picked up. Dalton
Exactly.
Schultz was picked up. Dawson Knox.
Dawson Knox, big one.
And then I got Khalil Herbert,
Yep.
Ernest Johnson, like, and I'm just naming the guys I've gotten because I'm more familiar with them. But like league wide, there's been talent picked up, and like it's there. So definitely, I agree. Like Fab does have value, and it is nice because like sometimes you're like, it's crap. I'm just gonna be real aggressive with my Fab.
Right.
But I also like it holds back. You saw me in our redraft. I spent everything on Eli Mitchell. I can't do that in the dynasty because like it's about more than this season. I can't be like, oh, spend all my fab on one guy and deal with it for the rest of the season. Like I need my fab because what if guys emerge, and I want to like bring them on my team then. So like there's more to it than just a redraft.
100%, which is what makes it exciting. And off season is going to be very interesting too. I think that's going to be where probably I'm more comfortable even moving some guys because it's just kind of like you gotta prepare for that draft, and I think that's gonna be an interesting time to like stay tuned.
It is, and that just reminded me a couple of things. Number one, I was talking to Mark the other day, and I came up with an idea for the trade deadline. So trade deadline is the 11th week. We'll find out whatever day the trade deadline is. It's going to be active. And my thought is in the final hour, and maybe I'll do it probably just the final hour, doing a YouTube live podcast where like I recap the trades of the day, and I'm going to be actively trade. You know me, I'm going to be involved in trade talk. So I'm going to be, it'll be a little sloppier from a production standpoint, but I think it'll be fun because like, and Mark's like, people can call into the show and talk and like, because it'd be sick for the final hour. Like you're cool. Listening to the podcast to gain, you're like, okay, like I have an hour left to make deals for this season. And you're like, what am I hearing? Who's on the block? Who's doing this? Like someone could jump on the podcast and be like, you could be like, I'm selling Marlon Mack, highest bidder,
Right.
So
Like
like,
get your bids in now.
yeah, I think it could be a really fun time. So we
That's
are gonna
definitely a great idea. Sorry to cut you off. I mean, that's a great idea because in the chat, obviously the chat's great, but it could quickly like get lost in the shuffle.
Mhm.
So that could be a nice way to sort of like hone it in and get all the eyeballs in one place.
I could probably have some sort of way. I don't know if I might not be able to share screen on YouTube Live. So maybe I was gonna say be cool to have like the shared screen. I got an Excel up. It's like Marlon Mack, current top bid.
Trending.
Trending. Yeah. But yeah, we'll have that. And to your point with the offseason too, like I'm sure we're gonna be messaging back and forth during the NFL draft. Like values are gonna change suddenly. And we're gonna want to trade people away before, after the draft, figure things
Right.
out. Like it's gonna be wild in the offseason.
Yeah, exactly. That's the part where like guys like me are gonna have to do their homework because I'm not nearly as familiar with like college and things like that. So it's gonna be a new element for me diving into that. These like the young bucks that haven't proven anything, not Madden 2011 worthy,
Yeah.
but got to
This
do it.
this might surprise you. I don't watch college football. Most of my intel is from like I follow a lot of people on Twitter, and like Jim Nagy's one of them. He's like the Senior Bowl guy. He invites all the people to the Senior Bowl, so he'll talk about the prospects. And then the fantasy footballers run like a dynasty week in the off season, and
Yep,
they
yep.
they do like the combine week. Like basically their off season is all dynasty related. So like whereas before I would tune out because Boston sports in the spring, you got like the Bruins and the Celtics playoffs.
Right,
I do
right.
watch sometimes. And so like my focus is definitely on Boston sports in the spring. But this year, like, I mean, it's a great way to keep up for Dynasty. So I'm gonna have to listen to those shows that previously I kind of tuned out of a little bit in the spring.
Oh yeah, same. I definitely check out immediately because you have like baseball to prepare for, at least for fantasy, and then real
Yeah.
baseball. And like, this time of year is actually like Christmas for us. We have like Bruins, Celtics, Red Sox all play today, and then Sunday we have Patriots, of course. So
Yeah.
we're just like basking and enjoying all that in. So the off season for football is usually not much going on, but now there will be.
Yeah, there definitely will be. Well, Edwin, I truly appreciate you coming on the show. It's been
Yes,
great.
sir.
You defended your point. You put it back on us. We were the true hoarders at the quarterback position. That's what we learned today. So appreciate you coming on. Thanks for being a part of the league. And we look forward to the trade deadline, my friend.
For sure, man. Thanks for having me on.
For sure. Hang
Go
on after
Sox.
hang on after you want to chat. But for everyone else, thanks for listening for the Old Board Podcast. We'll see you next week.